So you would have calculated all that. So for the first one, that means we have in this box here, I think we have our values, right? You can try to attempt to. So for the first one here, it means we found our taxes. Our aggregate expenditure was I think we corrected it to 338. Yeah, it should be 330 something, right? 338, I believe.
No, 388.
388, yeah. So it means our aggregate expenditure was 388 for the first one, right? Now, this question now here says, why is income of 300 not at equilibrium? So you say it's not at equilibrium because what have we found? 388, right? And then our income was 300. So you can see that they're different, isn't it? So this one is 300. Our aggregate expenditure is 388, right? So why is it not at equilibrium? So we'll say it's not at equilibrium because aggregate expenditure is not equal to income. Okay. So you just check. It's not, they're not equal, isn't it? So you write to say at equilibrium, Y is equal to AD. But at when income is 300, our equilibrium, our AD is 388, which is not the same, isn't it? So you'd have answered that. All right. So how do you
Pardon me, sorry. Repeat what you said.
I said, why is income of 300 not equilibrium? So at equilibrium, Y is equal to AD, meaning is equal to aggregate expenditure. But when income is 300, what did we find as our aggregate expenditure? We found as 388, right?
388.
Which they're not equal. So at equilibrium, they should be equal. We should find 300 here. Aggregate expenditure, we should also find 300. Okay. So how do expenditures and output compare at this point? So our expenditures is our AE, this aggregate expenditure here. This is our expenditure. So expenditure is 388, right? Then what about output? Output is this national income that we have here on the left side. So our national income is also our output because you measure GDP in terms of money. So there, how do they compare at that point? We just look at them. Expenditures are 388. Output is worth 300 million, right? So meaning how do they compare at that point? Our expenditures are greater than our output. That's how you compare them. Just say which one is greater than the other one. All right. So there, our expenditures are greater than our output. That's all. Would have concluded this paper. All right. So that is all. All right. So I think let me consider the quote below on unemployment from First Capital Bank. It says labor market data suggests that Zambia's economy is largely informal, with informal employment accounting for more than half of the total employment. So usually for this type, they will give you a lot of data that is unnecessary, but you need to know what you need and have a short class of unemployment. So it says, according to the 2020 second quarter labor force survey, there should be 3 million, whatever people were in employment, comprising 34% from rural areas and 65.1% from urban areas. In total, 1.8 million were male, while 1.2 were female. So you know that information has nothing to do with you, isn't it? The results also show that people from the employed population, almost a third, 29.9%, had occupations in the formal sector, while people employed in the informal sector and the household sector accounted for 50.7% and 19.4% respectively. So you know, out of that data, pretty much what we only want is, I think the one which is only important here is this one, isn't it? All these, whether they're women or females, employed in the informal sector or whatever sector, those are not important. So given the working age population of population 15 years and or older was estimated at, that should be 9 million, right? Yeah, whatever number is there, and the labor force at that amount. Define and calculate the labor force. So what is the labor force? The labor force is simply the total number of people that are both employed or unemployed. Total number of people that are either employed or unemployed. That comprises of the labor force. Okay, that's the definition. And it says, not the labor force, right? It says the labor force, define and calculate the labor force participation rate. All right. So all we need is to find the labor force participation rate. And by definition, the labor force participation rate is simply equal to the labor force divided by, okay, let me just write it down here. Labor force participation rate is just equal to the labor force. So it's labor force divided by the active population or working population. So active population, but I think what they used here, let me just check it out. So you multiply this by 100. But I think what they used here in the question, what we have is, let me just check the name that they used for the active population. So yeah, it's the working age population. So we'll say labor force divided by the working age population, okay? But it's the same thing. So labor force divided by the working age population times 100. That will give us the labor force participation rate, okay? I hope that is fine. So what is our labor force? So the labor force that we have here, I think we've been told is, okay, let me just check it out. So the labor force, you can just take a look at it. I think this should be the simplest question you can find. So the labor force is 346,526. Okay, maybe instead of me going back and forth, you can just help me with a calculator, right? So the labor force, but the labor force is that. All right. Okay. Where is it? No, this. All right. So we can look at the labor force. The labor force is 3465, right? So get this number here, okay, which is our labor force, then divide it by the working age population, then multiply that by 100. So what number, or what's the answer we're getting? If we get this number divided by this number here, which is they've told us is the working age population, right? Yeah, when you divide the two, what's the answer we're getting? Sydney, you have a calculator, I believe. So 3465526 divided by 9905071. What was the answer we're getting?
Should it be multiplied? The answer should be multiplied by 100.
Yes, you get to multiply by 100.
35%.
35%. Yeah, so that is the answer there. So whatever you find, just get to multiply by 100 when you divide the two. All right. All right, I hope that is all good.
What about the definition?
The definition, you just put that in terms of, you put the formula in terms of this. So you can just say the ratio of the labor force to the active population, all right? So look at the formula, it is this, isn't it? Okay, so it is the the percentage of the labor force to the active population. All right, or if you love to put it in words, maybe which one can we pick out?
Duncan, which one is this that you're explaining?
The labor force participation rate.
The one you were dividing
Yes, this is,
340 something million divided by 900 or what?
yes, it is that, but labor force participation rate, which is the first one.
Okay.
Right? Is that okay? So that is how you put it down there. Okay. So please, if you find this one, let it even be the first one you answer, isn't it? Because the unemployment is never difficult. All right. All right. Or maybe we can put it as, if you want maybe a formal definition, as the number of people in the labor force. It's the number of people in the labor force as a percentage of the working population. So the number of people in the labor force as a percentage of the working age population. But such type of definitions are definitions that you need to always remember, isn't it? Or master them. All right. But I think the other one was simpler. All right. So that is all about the labor force participation rate. Okay. So we can move on, I think, and look at the other one. It says compute and calculate the employment rate and unemployment rate. All right. So for these, you know that if you're calculating, for example, the unemployment rate, to calculate unemployment rate, we just equal to, we say the number of people that are unemployed divided by the total labor force. So divided by the labor force, then times 100. So and then the employment rate, we'll just get the number of people that are employed divided by the labor force. Then you multiply that by 100. Okay, so all that we need is to get these two. I think the labor force we already have. All we need is the number of people that are employed and those that are not employed, and those that are employed. So all that we need to do is we can get back to the question. All right, let me show this. So we can compute. So we have the information here. It says we have this total number here, right? So if we have this, it says these are the number of people that were employed in employment, right? So which is 30. So the number of people that are employed. So if we have the number of people that were, we know these are the ones who are employed. Then if our labor force is this, remember the labor force is equal to employed plus unemployed, right? So if you have to put down the labor force, so labor force is equal to, is the people that are employed plus those that are unemployed, meaning they're actively looking for jobs and they don't have them. So if the employed is 3, I think what's the number there? We have the number here of the number of people that are employed is the 3010 with this number here. These are the number of people that are employed. And the labor force is what? We've been given the labor force as this. So it means we can find the number of people that are unemployed, isn't it? Right? So you can calculate the number of people. So this number plus this number here should be equal to the labor force. This number rather, this is the labor force, right? So it means this number. So maybe somebody can just write it down so that as I go there to calculate. So we have this 3010309 plus X, which will represent the unemployed, should be equal to this here, the labor force, right? So what's the number of unemployed? So you can calculate the labor force. So since we have the formula right here, so since we have the employed plus the unemployed, so on the unemployed, you can just put X. You know the number of people in the labor force, right? So you can put down that number, then the number of people that are employed as well. Then you can just calculate it to be labor force minus the employed, right? To get the unemployed. So what's the answer we're getting? when we subtract this. So we have the labor force.
455.
Okay, let me just write it down. So the number of people that are unemployed, right, is 455.
217.
217. So these are the number of people that are unemployed, right? Then the
Yeah.
number of people that are employed, what did we have? So these are unemployed. So the employed, those who have jobs, how many are they?
3010.
Mm-hmm.
09. So
09 here, right? So
Duncan,
30.
just repeat on the part of how to find the unemployed.
This is the formula for the labor force. Labor force, I said the labor force is equal to the number of people that are employed plus the number of people that are unemployed, meaning these don't have jobs, right? Employed plus unemployed make up the labor force. So we already have the number of people that are in the labor force, and we also have the number of people that are employed. So we need to also find the number of people that are unemployed. So using the labor force, which we have, and we also have the unemployment rate. We have the number of people that are unemployed. So the labor force is right here. We've been given. What about the number of people that have jobs? We also have this one here. I think the first part they say people, these were in employment, right? So to find those that are unemployed, it means we'll say, if you look at our formula here, what do we need to do to find the number of people that are unemployed? It means the unemployed, we'll just make it the subject of the formula, isn't it? It will be equal to the labor force minus those people that are employed, isn't it? So we already have the number of people that are in the labor force, and we'll know the number of people that are here. So which we did the subtraction from the information we have, and then somebody has given me that the unemployment is therefore equal to this. Okay. So all that you need to do now is just replacing this formula. Are we okay? Replacing this formula. Okay. And that is all. So to find the unemployment rate will be equal to, you say the number of people that are unemployed is 455,217. So divided by, what's the total labor force? So the labor force, I think, from this question was given as what? The labor force is 3465. So it's 3465, and then
526.
Yeah, 526. That's all. Yeah, then you multiply this by
Yes.
So you just punch in the calculator to give you the percentage. Then for those that are employed, it will be the number of people that are employed, which was there. Then you divide it by the same labor force, then you multiply by 100. Is that okay? I really hope we're all good. That's how you calculate
All right.
the employment and the
I'm
unemployment.
a bit behind on that one, especially the last part that you're from explaining.
Okay, I believe we didn't do the class on unemployment. Yes.
Mr. Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, you said labor force is equals to employment plus unemployment.
Yes.
Then you said the labor force we're given, then it's equals to X minus unemployment.
Mm-hmm. So look,
So
the labor force.
where there is unemployment, we replaced the number, which was 3010309. And then we need to find the value of X, right?
Yeah, which is the unemployment.
So
So
yes.
we take this one to the other side.
To the other side.
So it will
then
be
we
labor
add
force.
it.
We add this to the other side. It will be labor force. It's positive here, so it will be negative the other side. That's why it's labor force minus employment. Here to give us the number of people that are not employed. The unemployed.
All right. Okay.
Then now here they're asking us to calculate the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate by formula is equal to the number of people that are unemployed divided by the number of people that are in the labor force, then times 100. So the number of people that are unemployed, we said after we used this formula, we found it was 45527, which is what we have here as the number of people, 25527. Then now we say the number of people that are in the labor force, it was given in the question. If you look at this question, it says the number of people that are, where is it? It says the number of people that are in the labor force. This is the number, and that's the number we have gotten and put it there. So you put the number here, 34652, that's the number. Then you multiply it by 100, that's the unemployment rate. Hope we're good. Then the employment rate. Employment rate will just be equal to, you say the number of people that are employed divided by the labor force, the number of people that are in the labor force, then you multiply by 100. Then you just put the values there and find the answer. I hope that is okay for everyone. All right.
Duncan, the one you said labor force over active population is what?
That's the labor force participation rate. Okay, so probably if you're having difficulties with these, I know to say you have not done the unemployment, right? I have a short class, I think it should be about 30 minutes, which talks about everything in details. Okay.
Okay,
'Cause I
Mr.
know
Duncan,
that-
we can finish up these questions and then
Yes, so that by the
we'll go
time it's
through
cutting.
whatever we learn, and also the class for the employment you can also send. Since we remain with the 6 minutes.
Yeah, so that one is now, I think this is all theoretical now, effects of unemployment, and there are various number of them. So one of the effects of unemployment is, so here, since it's 4 marks, so you can just list 4 of them, right? And probably as you are going there, just know, so it brings about poverty, right? Because if people are unemployed, they don't have money. So they're going to be poor, right? So poverty, you can also talk about the aspect of inequalities, right?
What did you say? What?
In inequality. In inequality.
Being unequal, inequality.
Yes. Okay.
We are right. You're right. We can
Yes,
proceed.
there can also be crimes, right? People are poor, there's lots of poverty. So what happens? They start to look for money, isn't it? So one of the other things you can have is the high, we can have unhealthy population, meaning you can have high levels of sicknesses because people don't have food, they don't have money. So here, in other ways, we can just talk about what are some of the effects when people don't have money. All right, poverty, high prostitution, and in terms of the other one is that the economy will be producing below its potential GDP, isn't it?
Yes, and another one I think is puts pressure on the government of the day.
Yeah, exactly, and it can also lead to high government expenditure, right? Which can lead to a deficit. So it can lead to a budget deficit in terms of the G minus T, right? So the government can start spending more money on unemployment benefits, right? So they start giving people that are not employed. So G is increasing. So it can lead to a deficit. All right. So this one is a very much open discussion. All right. So, but we have D, which says explain systematically how a profit maximizing firm decides how much labor to employ. Labor to demand. I don't know how they put this one here because I was expecting, I think you guys didn't do on labor, but I think for this one, it's a microeconomics question. All right. But I'll see how best I can put it in terms of macro. All right. Because it's usually given in micro, where we have the number of people that they're going to employ, the firm we employ, where the marginal product of labor is equal to 0 to maximize. So maybe just for now, I know you don't understand that because it's usually done in microeconomics, but the firm employs labor up to the point where marginal product is equal to 0. I know you asked me what marginal product, but that's the concept in microeconomics. That so the firm, we employ labor up to the point where marginal product is equal to 0. I hope that is okay. So to maximize profit, the firm we employ labor up to the point where the marginal product of labor is equal to 0. Okay. Then I think there's the last one, which says discuss why labor supply is ambiguous. Ambiguous just means it is unpredictable or it is not clear. All right. So why is it not clear? Maybe you can just write down this. Let me give you something simpler. So it is ambiguous because it depends on personal preferences. Because it depends on personal preferences towards current and future consumption. So it depends on personal preferences towards current and future consumption, and leisure. So for example, look at the number of people that can be willing to work. It depends on the current consumption. How is your consumption and your future? If you know to say tomorrow I'm going to have a luxury life, or today I want to spend, I don't want to work, someone will say probably it's a personal type of thing. So you can never determine how a person's consumption will be today or how it's going to be tomorrow, how they perceive it. So depending on how they perceive it, I can say, I'm growing up in my father's house, I don't want to work. So my dad has got all these things. I think I don't think it's a good thing for me to work, and I can just decide to stay back, isn't it? And so that is the reason why it is ambiguous. You cannot determine it. It's not very clear. You cannot predict it. All right. That is all. So if you look at the questions that are in the other paper, very much similar to this. All right, but I'll just do one question on the nominal GDP in the next class. And yeah, and then let's do these two. I think that is all. When you do these two, you take a look at all the questions, they lie on these. All right, so let me cancel this one, then I send you the other links just now.